Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to Flow Over Fear in this training episode where I want to talk about one of the buzzwordiest buzzwords in buzzword land, which is imposter syndrome. We've all experienced it. Maybe many of us experience it on a daily basis. I know I experience it a lot. And there are two times in particular that stick out to me that I experienced it at a significant level. And it happened to be two times where I was going way outside of my comfort zone, somewhere into something new, something that I've never done before. And those two times when I made the commitment to start getting into triathlon. And when I became the president and CEO of my family business. The first time within that world of triathlon, when I started looking into Ironman and started going towards it, I was incredibly intimidated. And I was intimidated. I was afraid to go into bike shops because I'd never ridden a road bike before. I was afraid to engage with triathlon clubs because I knew that they were so much far down the path than I was. And I was this weird wannabe triathlete who had no experience and had just quit smoking like a month earlier. I had no business being there. I felt like an imposter. So when I got into it, it took me a long time and it took a lot of courage to get through that and to actually, get to the level where I felt confident enough. And even into the points in time where I was, doing well in triathlons and had done many Ironman triathlons, I still felt that sense like I was an imposter when I was amidst, people that were standing on the podium, or when I was engaging with or speaking to triathlon clubs about my experiences. I felt like an imposter. And the same was true when I moved into the position that I'm in now at my family business. And the reason is because I didn't feel like I had any business doing that either. I had no executive experience. I wasn't I didn't know how to lead a company. And that feeling, many years later now that I've been in that position and many things have changed within the business, the revenue has grown significantly. Our profits have grown quite a bit since then. And, our business is starting to, get more sustainable as we continue to go. But even with all of that, I still continue to feel that sense like I'm, an imposter, like it's the imposter syndrome. And some of the things that I've learned about in those two experiences, and I've had many more experiences with imposter syndrome, even the first time I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous after getting sober. That first experience walking into AA, I felt like an imposter. And I felt like even there, everybody was so much better than me. I was intimidated and lacked the confidence to really engage. But what I learned from those experiences is that there's a few reasons we experience that imposter syndrome, and that it's really just, even though it's a buzz phrase and everybody says it, everybody says they have imposter syndrome now, that really what it comes down to is it's a lack of confidence, that we lack confidence in that position. And there's really three things that we can do to rise above that imposter syndrome. There's three things that we can do to rise above it. The first is to recognize imposter syndrome for what it really is. Yes, it's a buzz phrase. Yes, imposter syndrome sounds great and it looks good on personal development worksheets and all that kind of stuff. But what is it? What is it really? Well, it's fear. It's the fear of not being enough. It's the fear of people not liking you. It's the fear of failure, but they're all common elements. It's the FEAR, fear. Did I spell that right? Yes, I did. I'm even an imposter when it comes to grammar. So that's a true story, by the way. But it's fear. It's all related to fear. We're afraid. And once we recognize it for what it is, that it is fear, that we're afraid of failing, that we're afraid of this, that we're afraid of that, we can start to get to the root of our limiting beliefs. What are the beliefs that are driving us toward believing or toward having that fear? And then when we have those limiting beliefs, we can start to, when we start to recognize what those limiting beliefs are, whether it's I'm not good enough, I don't have the people skills, I don't have this, or well, now we're getting more specific. We're not just thinking we're imposters. We're not thinking we're enough. We're getting down to the specific. Now, how can we change that language to show that we actually are? How can we look backwards on our points of reference that we have behind us in our history to show us that we are absolutely capable of doing that, despite this fear? For me, when I was in triathlon, I had no business doing an Ironman, but I had just spent the last year getting sober. Something I never thought that I'd be able to do before. That was my point of reference, was that I could do something that I thought was impossible. Now here was something else that was impossible. And I wanted it with deep, deep conviction. And so that led me to getting the confidence, that acknowledgement of my limiting belief, and the changing of my language and the changing of my perspective and the looking back at a point of reference of something that I had achieved gave me the confidence to push forward and continue and keep going with that triathlon. And the second part of rising above that imposter syndrome is to recognize that all great leaders, all high achievers go through it in one phrase or another. Whether they call it imposter syndrome or not, they all go through it. Everybody does. And this was one of the unique takeaways of my recent interview with Hugh Edwards, which is available on iTunes if you want to go check it out. But he had said something very powerful, which was that everybody is winging it. And it's so freeing to hear that. Even the president of the United States, every single president we've ever had in our history is winging it because they're getting elected into a position that they've never done before, that they have no clue what they're in for, what they're doing, what they have at that point. And the thing about leadership and the thing about high achievement is that we're being put into situations where there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of things we can't anticipate. There's a lot of things where we have to think on our feet, where we have to wing it. When we wing it, we're making decisions that are based on our guts, our experiences, or our best beliefs. But those are decisions that are not certain regardless. They're uncertain because that's what leadership takes. It takes that courage. It takes that courage to move beyond the imposter syndrome. But that imposter syndrome is linked to the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty. It doesn't mean we're imposters. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be there. It doesn't mean that we're not enough. It doesn't mean that we're not capable. It just means that we don't know. And that's okay. It's okay that we don't know. It's okay that we're uncertain. But we go in the direction that we trust anyway because we have the faith and we have the experience and we have the know-how to actually move forward. So recognize that all great leaders go through it. Recognize that everybody's going through it. And if they don't, if they don't experience that, then you got to stay clear of that, man, because that is dangerous. If you're not experiencing that, that's dangerous. And that leads me to the third part about imposter syndrome, which is the third way to rise above imposter syndrome is to change your perspective on it. Change your perspective on what imposter syndrome is. Is it telling you you're not enough? Is it truly telling you that? Is it truly telling you that you can't do this? Is it truly telling you that you're incapable or that you're afraid or that you're going to piss everybody off? Or is it challenging you? Is it challenging you to push into the zone of discomfort where growth occurs? Is it telling you you're not enough, or is it challenging you to push into that zone of discomfort where growth occurs? Growth only happens with struggle, with resistance, with challenge. And in order to feel that growth, we're going to have to feel a bit of fear. We're going to have to feel a bit of apprehension or imposter syndrome. So instead of trying to get rid of this thing called imposter syndrome, instead of trying to get rid of it or push it away or heal it or do whatever you want or give into it and just not try anyway, why not embrace it? Why not embrace this fact and then let it recognize? Why not celebrate when you experience it? Because now you know that you're in a position that is pushing you to grow, that is pushing you to achieve more, that is pushing you to elevate and elevate others. It's telling you that you're a leader, that you've been put into this position to lead. And it's challenging you. It's challenging you to push into that zone of discomfort. So embrace it. Don't push it down. Embrace it. Let it humble you. Let it empower you. And then let it drive you. Let it drive you forward. I still have imposter syndrome to this day. The second that I put on these earphones and step in front of this mic, I get imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing here? My mind is telling me that I don't belong here, that I'm not enough to do something like this. But then I realize, then I rephrase it, I change it, that this imposter syndrome is driving me to be more. It's telling me, it's a signal to me that I'm afraid. And that fear is a signal to me that I'm pushing up against this wall of discomfort and I better break through that barrier, maybe just a little bit, so that I can grow my area of discomfort and continue to lead. So embrace your inner imposter and embrace that imposter syndrome. Embrace the fear, because first we fight it, then we face it, then we rise above it to embrace it. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.